so this is just a quick summary video of what we did today in class. And we talked about the adding and subtracting methods. Now, these aren't the story problems. These are how kids solve more complicated problems. And then commutative and associative property of addition. So, again, the traditional algorithm that you kind of probably grew up, but not necessarily, is you just add these, you get 13. So the whole carry thing, right? Like 13 carry the 1. You get 15 carry the 1 and 2. Okay, that's kind of more the traditional algorithm. We don't really teach this much until later. And so when we first teach adding, we teach what we call partial sums, where you focus on place values. So this is kind of like 100 plus 0. This is 70 plus 70, and this is really a 9 plus 4. So you focus on the hundreds position, the tens, and the ones. And so this is 100, that's 140, that's 13. And then a kid would add those up, okay? And again, partial means we're focusing on parts of it, like different parts of it, place value. So this is partial sums, okay? And some kids might add the 9 and 4 first, then this, then this. I mean, you know, it just depends. Decomposition is when you decompose the number. All right, so if I have 179 and 74, what I want to do is I kind of want to break it apart or decompose it to make it easier to add. And so again, this might kind of vary by kid. And again, don't decompose it by place value. So you can't do 179 and 74, then you're doing partial sums. It has to be something other than that. So what some kids might do is they might be like, well, if I break a 1 off from here and get, 73 here, then I get 180 and then 73. And maybe that's easier, but if they have to regroup, maybe not. Okay, so usually with decomposing, we want them to not have to regroup if we can. Okay, sometimes you can't. So more likely what we might do is we might be like, okay, what do I need to make this 200? So a 2 would make that a 9, and a 1 would make that regroup and be a 10. So a 10 and a 90 would regroup into 100. So it's like, ooh, if I could steal 21 from this, I can make that guy 200. And so then what's left over here is at 53. So 53 and 21 is my 74, but that 21 is really a good break. So usually when we decompose to make one of them like 100, 200, 300. So this would be 200, and then you can see the 53, so 253. And that's called decomposition. And anytime you're decomposing, your goal is to get friendly numbers. I mean, that's ultimately why you're doing it, all right? I could maybe decompose the other way. So again, some kids might be like, well, I want to decompose this guy to make this 100. So then you're like, okay, I have 74. What do I need to make this friendly? Well, that would be what? 26, because 20 would make 90, and then the 6 would make a 10, and so it'd regroup into 100. So if I take 26 from this, this would be what? 153. And again, if you can't do it mentally, a kid probably won't do it. So 3 and 6 is 9, 5 and that, and then 1. So we're good. So then again, they decompose or they break off part of it and give it to this guy. So then I get 100. These two make 100. And then I have this, so I get my 253. So decomposition is when you break it to make it into something friendly. Let's see, what else do you do? Let's see, rounding with compensation. Again, it's usually a good idea to just round one of them. Don't round both. But again, it kind of depends on what you're doing. So, I mean, if I round this up to 200, all right, that would be 200 plus 74. That's 274. So that makes it nice. But I actually added, 21 more than I should have, right? I mean, I went all the way up to 21, or added 21 to that to get up to 200. So I would need to subtract, is that right? I added 21 to this guy, yeah. So if I subtract, so this is 274, sorry, I wrote it wrong. All right, so if I subtract that 21, because I added way too much, so if I subtract that, and again, notice I didn't have to ungroup. So with rounding with compensation, you want to make it so that after you add, if you have to compensate, that you don't have to ungroup. Because if we had to regroup and ungroup, we just do the standard algorithm, okay? You know, a kid might round this to like 180 and 74, you know, that they still have to kind of regroup here. Do you see that? So it's not super helpful. And then let's see, they made this one too big, so they'd have to subtract the 1. So 253. So this one, I mean, you know, it's okay, but they did have to regroup when they got the 15 there. So, you know, but you kind of want to round it and then compensate for what you did. What I would, I mean, if you rounded both on this, you could. Like, if you're like, well, 175 and 75 are super friendly numbers to add, right? Think of money like $1.75 and 75 cents. If that's easy for you, because you're like, oh, if I had $1 and what, 3/4, and then I have another 3/4, I know that that makes another $1, right? You know, so if you know that that's 250 just because you know it, right? You just are like, oh, not regrouping. You're just like, oh, if I had $1.75 and 75, I know it's 250. Then you could subtract, but notice what, all right, I had to kind of, I wasn't speaking very well there. So if it kind of glitched on you, that's why. All right, so if you think of this one is 4 too short, right? Like I'm missing 4 that I should have had. Like this should really be bigger. So it's missing 4 that it should have had. This one, I made it bigger than it should have been. So on this one, I need to get rid of that 1. Because this one I made smaller than it really was. So it's missing 4 that I need to add in. This one I made bigger than it really is. So I need to kind of get rid of that 1. So if I'm missing 4, I need to add 4. To get rid of the extra 1, I need to subtract. So that's how I know how to compensate. Again, rounding both is a little dicey sometimes because sometimes it's hard to tell how to compensate. So it's usually a good idea just to round one of them to like 100 or 200 and then fix it after the fact. That's usually not a bad idea. All right, let's look at, let's see, what else do we have? Base 10 blocks. Okay, so if I have 100, 79, and 74, and we could do like a base 10 chart too. So I have 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So with base 10 blocks, you'd lay out both numbers, right? Here's my top number, and adding means to combine. So I'm going to take these 9, and I'm going to combine them there. And again, I'm going to regroup, and I'm going to get a new long. And again, I'm just going to regroup those. All right, and then again, I'm going to count to 10. So there's 10 longs, and I'm going to regroup into a flat. All right, and so then when you're done, you're just kind of like, okay, what's left? Well, there's, those are left, these are left, and these are left. And again, this guy's a new one. All right, so what do I have? I have 2 flats, 5 longs, and 3 singles, which is 253. Okay. All right, I'm going to pause just for a second, and then we're going to talk about some of the subtraction methods. Again, I didn't go over like hundreds, tens, ones, how you can make a base 10 chart by just doing this. And then, you know, you could get 13, 14, and 1, right? You have 13 of those, 14 of those, and then you could regroup these and get 3 of these, and that would give you, what, 15 of those. And so you can kind of regroup it in stages, and then you have 15 of those, base 10 you can't, so then you make that 2, and then you end up with there. So lots of ways. These are kind of the main ones. All right, I'm going to pause for a second, and then we're going to do subtraction. All right, let's do these. Traditional algorithm is you ungroup and you borrow, but it doesn't really make sense when you think about it, but this is a 5. You can't subtract, you ungroup, you really use the term borrow, which again doesn't make sense, and you get 625. So now we focus more on understanding. So again, this is our traditional algorithm. This is partial differences because the word difference means to subtract, so partial differences. That focuses on place values. So like 800 minus 100, 20 minus 90, 3 minus 8. And so you get a positive 700 because you can take that and you have stuff left over. 20 minus 90, you actually still owe 70, okay? You didn't have enough to subtract. You need more subtraction. 3 minus that is what? Negative 5, is that correct? All right, and kids might view these as subtraction, not so much negative. And then what a kid would probably do is maybe subtract those and get what? 630. And again, they might add on to get it. They might not really subtract. And then they're going to combine these. And again, I don't really subtract here. I just add on 625 and that adds up to that. Okay, so they might use a mix of methods. Again, be careful with partial differences. Remember, if you have like 281 minus 190, we'll just do 190. All right, you would have, this would be 100 because it would be 200 minus 100. This would be 80 minus 90, which would be, you still owe 10. But this is 1 minus 0. That's a positive one. Like, it just kind of depends on what you get. So again, if I combine these, I get a positive 90, and this is what, a positive 1, so that would be a positive, what, 91, okay? So again, these aren't always negative, aren't always positive. It just depends on what you get when you subtract. All right, let's do adding on. And adding on is a great method if you write the right problem. Because it's like counting back change, and it focuses more on the understanding of subtraction as a distance. So it's like, okay, what can I add on to get up to 200 on a number line? So I need to add 2. So like if you're counting back change, it'd be like, okay, $2 get you up to 200. From 200, you could go all the way up to 800. So from 200 to 800, I'm going to add in, what, another 600? So now I'm at $800. And then I'd be like, okay, you need another $23 to get to 823. So 2 gets you up to 200, 600 gets you to 800 and there. And so if I add these up, that's the little distance, big distance, and medium distance. So you still get the same answer of 625. So 625, because I add up those distances. That's adding on. Shifting both is a little bit different. It's kind of the same number line idea, but it's a distance where you move both of them. So you don't add up to build, you actually shift them both. And that. And usually it's easier to shift so the bottom number is friendly. And again, remember, that's always our goal, is to use friendly numbers when we add or subtract. So again, adding 2 is what we did first here, but this time I'm going to shift them both up 2. So if I shift this guy up 2, I'm at 200. If I shift this guy up 2, I'm at what? 825. That distance just got moved up. The distance didn't change. I just went from here to here. So I changed the problem. So 825 minus 200 is what? 625. So I basically made this guy go up by 2, this guy go up by 2, and when I subtract 825 minus 200, I get 625. Let's see. Okay, base 10 blocks. All right, now remember, in this method, you only draw the first number. You don't draw both, because you're taking, this is what you have, this is what you're taking away. So I'm going to draw my 8 flats. And then I have 2 longs and 3 singles. And I want to take away 8 singles. So what you're going to do is you're going to ungroup. And when you ungroup in base 10, you always get 10. All right, and that's why when you cross that off, this becomes a 13, because you just added 10 to that, okay? I want to take away 8 of them, so 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to take those away. All right, and these guys are left right there. All right, so 13 minus 8, you can count them. There's 5. Now you're going to go look at longs, okay? You only have 1 left, and you want to take away 9. So again, in base 10, you don't borrow, you ungroup. So I'm going to ungroup and get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I want to take away 9, so I'm going to take all these away. There's those 2 left. And again, when I ungroup, I take one of these flats away, and I give this guy 10 more. So 10 plus 1 is 11. 11 minus 9 is 2. And you should be able to see those 2 right there. And then I have 7 minus 1. Well, I have 7. I don't have to ungroup. I'm going to take this guy away, and I get 6. And again, you can see what's left, because right there, and right there. Okay? All right, let's see. I'm going to pause there just because of time, and then I'm going to start another video. So this will be part 1.